Okay. We welcome each other with warmth and grace, and we fondly give our time in this our sacred time together. We give a thought for everyone around the world who find themselves in a new and unfamiliar ground, be it physically or mentally. And we also turn our thoughts to our community of friends who we have come to know so well over the years. We are a mix of different people, and today we explore what is beating at the heart of each one of us. And we give thanks for this opportunity as we share in this unity through our worship today. So today is all about the stranger within. So we know, it's very easy to identify somebody outside that's coming into our group. We can see they're a stranger, but quite often we don't realise what's going on inside, and sometimes looking back we can see things which are unfamiliar or long forgotten. So that's what I'm going to explore today through my own experience, as well as a reading from somebody else. You have to just forgive me, my voice is a bit croaky, so hopefully the mic will help this in this respect. So today is Sanctuary Sunday, also called Refugee Sunday, a day when churches around the world remember and pray for refugees and displaced people. The UN estimates there are over 110 million displaced people around the globe, the highest number in human history. Behind that unthinkably large number are human stories. Stories of individual people forced from their homes by war, disaster and persecution. Some of those stories have led people to seek sanctuary in Scotland, making new homes and starting new lives. So this week I have been involved with an event called You, Me and a Game of Sport as part of Refugee Week, the theme being Rise. We brought local communities together with refugees who are currently staying at different hotels in Aberdeen and in the Shire, and we played badminton, squash and pickleball and table tennis. This helps bring a positive mindset for people involved, and which can go on to influence those that weren't there because of what they bring to other people. It's infectious, that positive mindset. Doing something positive spreads positive attitudes and can lighten the load a little for those who fear being deported, for instance, to Rwanda at this moment in time. So we remember these people and the outer drama of this world, but today I also want to focus on what is happening within each and every one of us. If we look back on our lives, we can find stories of displacement, persecution and disaster, albeit maybe on a different scale. There are times in our life when we look back and cringe or push our thoughts deep down because we don't want to remember these hard times or these mistakes that we made. Times of discomfort, trial and unrest. But what I want to focus on most of all is how all these past experiences have affected us in different ways. We could say that it made us stronger, harder, or more resilient. Or we could say that it made us more afraid of repeating the same things, anxious of it happening again maybe, or makes us believe in a way that we would not like to think we would normally be. I'm going to explain how external events affect our inner world, looking at my own experience and detailing how I now view the world in light of this discovery. There are many times, or there are many things I've paid no interest in previously, thinking they were superstitious or removed from my reality of this world. But we are a superstitious race of human nature, and we feed off energy of others without even being aware of it, and we are often affected by things which remain often out of our awareness. I never used to like being told how I should be, or what kind of person I was, or being made to fit in a box of any way. But there's no mistaking human design and human nature, which in some way can be determined through certain observances, and we are going to explore that. But first, we shall have our first hymn. Before I go deep into my own experience, I would like to read you some reflection from someone called Fiona Kendall. And she provides this reflection about refugees after reading this Bible reading. So this Bible reading comes from Mark chapter 4, verse 35. It's when Jesus stills a storm. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats with him. A great gale arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" So this reflection I'm about to read is by Fiona's experience working on Lampedusa on the Italian island, one of the main arrival points for the boats carrying migrants to Europe. The experiences we have can lead us to view Bible readings through different lenses. Now 6 years into working alongside Mediterranean Hope, a team within the Federation of Protestant Churches in Italy, whose whole focus is people on the move. My reading of this passage has sharpened the mortal danger faced by those who journey in barely seaworthy vessels has become a daily reality. I have now seen for myself crude boats and exhausted souls who arrive on Lampedusa. I have a far keener sense of the panic attributed to the disciples as their vulnerability to the elements became evident. Extreme vulnerability. Asylum seekers are not only at the mercy of the weather and the waves, their modest ambition to reach the place of safety is not within their gift to realise, for in truth they are entirely at the mercy of the decision of others. Those who manage borders, those who make and implement asylum policy, those who weaponize migration for political gain, those who genuine fear of the other or of poverty, contributes to an atmosphere of casual racism and hostility to migrants. Few of us experience such vulnerability, yet most of us know at some level what it is to feel terror, anxiety, and depression. How often in these circumstances might we too have voiced the disciples' accusation, "Teacher, don't you care?" Yet in the passage, when challenged, Christ does not continue or confine himself to simple reassurances. He dismantles the stone entirely, and in doing so reminds us of how far beyond your imagination his power goes. We are confined by our own horizons. Jesus smashes them open. Is it too much to permit him to do this in our lives? This passage invites us to trust God completely, and in so doing, see our fears entirely dismantled. It may also be inviting us to consider what we, as God's hands and feet, are doing to dismantle the fears and vulnerabilities of those around us. For in lifting the veil of fear, faith is revealed. So Fiona Kendall, European and Legal Affairs Advisor to the Mediterranean Hope. So I thought it was a very interesting revelation which Fiona had after reading the passage. It gave her a new perspective which brought the lessons she was needing to have hope in her situation and those she was trying to help. Fear is something we all can relate to in many different ways, and we often look to each other or something greater to help us when times are tough. Our inner strength is built over time, and it is our faith that keeps us going, whether that be faith in ourselves, in humanity, or a faith in God. We all need something that we can hold on to and share the burden for our lives. What these refugees encountered will have a permanent effect on their lives. What I am also interested in is what has permanent effect on our lives. So before we go deeper into that, we shall sing our next hymn, Stillness Creeping Through This Place.
Come
So I could spend the rest of our time together talking about refugees and their plight, but I want us to find some common ground within everyone. What is happening and affecting us and the way we behave. And in this realization, I think we can find what affects us is the same for everybody, no matter who you are and where you come from. Our circumstances may be different, but the way we react and respond to whatever we are faced with is very similar. So I'm going to tell you now of some of the research I did through 2 years training on my ministry course, which had me go back into looking at my past and all the different things that I've done in the past and all the things I'd forgotten. And it's quite a surprise. It's all these things that you push down and don't realise. So at the beginning of this course, I wanted to change who I was physically in the world. I'd worked on myself internally, spiritually, and so I was a different person, or I felt a different person. But outwardly, I was just the same to everybody else. And so I wanted to learn how to change that and be more who I really wanted to be. So, I felt like two different people. It's like a mask that we all put on sometimes. We always, if somebody asks, how are you doing, we'll say, yeah, I'm fine. It's just, an instant reaction. It might not be how we truly feel. And sometimes that's the mask we wear. So, one of the things I researched was something called gene keys. So I learned many different faith paths, and in one of the faith paths was modern faith paths. And so I came across something called gene keys, and you may not have heard of it, but it was quite a revelation to me. And it's brought together a number of elements in which to try and determine how you are. So it tries to fit you in this box, this thing that I never wanted and never believed in, really. But, I was doing some research, and this is what I came across. So through your date of birth and your location and where you are, it creates this chart that you see on the screen. So this chart is based upon several elements. You'll see the blue dots, which are all connected. And you'll see red dots that are all connected. And you'll see some green ones. So these are different paths, ways of looking at your life, really. So you look at, it gives you advice on what is your life's work. Sometimes we want to do something, but we don't know what we want to do, what we're best suited for. This brought together various elements to try and guide you on that path. So I never told you what it was that, what you're supposed to do. It really made you go inwards and look at, what are you like as a person, and what are you best suited to do. So it looks at your evolution, your radiance, and your purpose. But I'm not going to focus too much on that at the moment. I'm just going to describe these different elements that it uses to try and determine what kind of person you are. And this is the interesting part. So one of the elements is human design. So, we all have heard of DNA and how different properties are all linked or held in our DNA. And so this really dictates the type of person we are. I don't know much about this really, genetics. This could be a whole talk on that kind of thing, but I've heard of it, and I realise that through other books. What we do as people, as human, we have different characteristics, and we can carry that on to the next generation and so on. And this is quite often locked in our DNA, so I believe. So that's one element. The next thing was the I Ching. This is the Book of Changes from China. Quite often used for divination in Taoist faith path. So this book is a few thousand years old, and it really detailed the first binary coding system by using the element of yin and yang. So if you think of a yang as a horizontal line, and the yin as a horizontal line that's broken in the middle. So that's like your ones and zeros, your on-off. So you put a series of these lines together and you get a trigram. Now these trigrams are labelled in Chinese. They stand for heaven, earth, lake, flame, thunder, wind, water and mountain. So they give them these names because they're characteristics. And so what they used to do is throw coins or what are called yarrow sticks, and they would create these lines. So that's your trigram, and it would be one of these elements. Then they would do it again and then put another 3 on top of it. So now you've got 6 lines, which is called a hexagram. Now these 6 lines have 64 combinations, possible combinations. So now you've got a list of ideas. So you would think of a situation, or you'd ask it a question, and it come up with this. And again, it's not telling you exactly what is the future or what you should do. It really just giving you information as to what that you can relate to. So this all about balance. This yin yang is all about balance. So it's how you draw this all together. I thought this very interesting. So the gene keys also use this philosophy within the system. Something I've been exploring of late. This comes up with some very interesting ideas on life. The next thing the gene keys use is what's called codon rings, or codon rings, if I'm saying that correctly. So this is a chemical family within your body made up of 1 or more codons. There are a total of 21 codon rings, each one relating to a specific amino acid in a stop codon. The codon rings are transgenetic chemical families that operate across the entire gene pool, drawing certain people naturally together in pairs, groups, and ultimately forming whole societies. The codon rings are biological machinery behind what the ancients called karma. So again, using scientific principles within a system to try and detail the kind of person that you are, or you feel drawn to. So the next thing that the gene keys use is astrology. I've never been one for astrology, birth signs. You know, how can that really determine me as a person? So I never used to believe in that. But of course, I was doing research, so I thought, well, you know, let's see where this leads, see what this is all heading towards. So, you know, we have the sun and the moon, and we know that the moon affects us biologically because it affects water, and we are 60 to 70% water. So we have monthly cycles. And it also affects our tides that go in and out. So the gravitational pull of the moon affects us physically because of the tides and because of how we are made up. So, okay, there's one scientific principle that, you know, the planet or a moon can affect us. And of course, the sun being relatively close in a cosmological sense affects us. You know, it gives us heat, and it has sunspots. So I'm going to read a little bit here. Through their gravitational tugging, the moon and planets distort the shape of the Earth's orbit and the tilt of its axis to its orbit, causing subtle changes in the intensity of sunlight reaching us. So in 1952, the Swiss astronomer Johann Wolf showed that despite its great distance, Jupiter has more gravitational effect on the Sun than any other planet. He went on to develop a theory that seemed to account for sunspot numbers via the influence of Jupiter and other planets. So you think, wow, so we have a planet way out in our solar system that is now affecting our Sun, which affects us. So, we're starting to see some cosmological influences affecting our personal bodies. So this next bit I got from health.com. It was written by Amanda Macmillan and medically reviewed by Dr. Kashif J. Paracha. Suggested solar activity impacts on human health. Now, everyone has been convinced that solar flares are completely harmless. The area of science dedicated to investigating the connections between human health and solar activity is called heliobology. Some researchers contend that the link can be negative. One study said a variety of health issues may be caused by changes in the solar and geomagnetic environment, including blood flow alterations, cardiac arrhythmia, cardiovascular disease, epileptic seizures, increased blood pressure, and increased incidence of myocardial infarction-related death. So it's that's quite a surprise to me, but again, we're getting this picture that how we can be influenced. I follow a Taoist diet myself, which revolves around the influence of energies that were active at the time of my birth, which is related to organ health, among many other things. While this may seem a bit beyond regular scientific validation, it works for me, and so that's why I do it. And so many other observances have led to me not to dismiss this research, which I have come across. And the gene keys also uses the date of birth and location, as I said, similar connection in a way that operate as humans. So so something I didn't believe in, I'm now thinking, oh, hang on a minute, okay, I can now realise that there's planets that affect our cosmos and affect our sun, and in turn affects me, just like the moon affects me. Do I believe in horoscopes still? Well, yeah, that's still out there. But it is something that I continue to research, knowing that we are influenced in many different ways, which got me to look deeper into, well, what is this saying to me? Is it guiding me to do something about this or something specific? No, it's just really trying to determine that you are a certain person because of certain things influence you. And you can use that. If you understand what influences you, then you can understand the way you're going to react. Just like when somebody triggers all your buttons, if you're aware of that beforehand, you can stop and think, oh, hang on a minute, I shall not react, and you have a different outcome. So this, in the same way, is just making you realise that you are a particular sort of person, and so that you can then bring a bit of balance into your life. So, very interesting concept. And this was brought together over 13 years of research and work from a guy called Richard Rudd. And so I enjoy listening to him quite often. The next thing, which I never put much stock in and didn't really know much about, was the Enneagram. Now, the Enneagram works in a way which it asks you a number of questions, and you answer all these questions, and it really builds up a picture of who you are. And then it guides you to one of these numbers that you see, 1 to 9 here. And you decide on whether you accept that as you as a person. So number 1 is the reformer, the rational, idealistic type. Principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionist. So that'd be a number 1. And number 2, the helper, caring, interpersonal type, demonstrative, generous, people-pleasing, and possessive. Number 3, the achiever, the success-oriented, pragmatic type, adaptive, excelling, driven, and image-conscious. Number 4, the individualist, the sensitive, withdrawn type, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental. Number 5, the investigator, the intense cerebral type, perceptive, innovative, secretive, isolated. I'm reading these, and you might sort of think one of these fits you more than any other. It's very hard to tell without going through the process. The loyalist, number 6, the committed, security-orientated type, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. The enthusiast, the busy, fun-loving type, spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. The challenger, the powerful, dominating type, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. And the peacemaker, the easygoing, self-effacing type, receptive, reassuring, agreeable, complacent. Out of curiosity, I answered all these questions and to find out what type I was. So my type is number 9, the peacekeeper, which I thought interesting. Okay. And it goes on to list all the things which I might consider myself as a person, what my strengths might be and what my weaknesses might be. And I looked and thought, well, okay, it got it pretty much bang on. Okay, you know, people have been trying to formulate this over long periods of time. So I thought, okay, so maybe you can decide who a person is by, you know, the types of things that they do and what they're, you know, and who they are. So it started to change my mind a little bit. You know, they've been fit in a box. You know, I started to think, okay, yeah, I can see, you know, by some observance that you are a particular type of person. I suppose there's some people who will fly off the handle very quickly. They're a certain type of person. Or there's some people who just like to keep calm all the time. Both extremes. So, okay. So I can now use this, realizing that, okay, if something's going to happen, I will have a tendency to be like this. And I can now change that to be something slightly different. You know, for instance, if I was a sort of person who just talked about something and never actually did it, then that's something I would know that I would never get things done. So knowing that I would always talk about it and not get things done, I can then look at it and think, right, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm going to be active and I'm going to do whatever it is I said I'm going to do straight away. And that's a sort of example. It's sort of not letting things lie too much in one particular area where your weaknesses, bringing a strength in. So okay, that's one thing. So the next thing I looked at, and this is through my work as many years in engineering, was management styles. again, I didn't want to be fit into a box. But apparently there's 4 management styles. From the one end there's a dictator, and then the other end there's a guy who just likes to listen to everybody, talk about it for a long, long, long time, and eventually make a decision. I'm sort of more to that end, or I used to be. But to be effective manager, you need to be a combination of these 4 different styles. So I went on a course, and we determined what style we were, and then they asked for volunteers, so they wanted 4 volunteers. So yeah, I'll volunteer. So we each drew a straw, and we had to determine what type of management style we were going to be for this exercise. So I drew the dictator, which was a total opposite as to the person I was going to be. I thought, okay. So the challenge was, you put into 4 groups, and you had to make something. And I'm thinking, okay. So I had a group of people. They didn't know what was going on. They just saw all this rubbish on the table, and then AI comes along, and I says, right, we're going to build a helicopter. Right, okay. Right, I want some ideas. So quickly I had a few ideas, and that was the only input my team had from there on. I was dictating everything that was going to happen. So I said, right, you're going to build the wing, you're going to build the rotors, you're going to build this, you're going to do that. And so I was trying to be as bossy as I could. So seeing that was being quite successful, I thought, right, I'm going to have to change this. So I just snatched stuff out of their hands, and I give it to somebody else that says, you're not quick enough, you do that. And I swapped things. I thought I was being a total... I won't say more words, but I was being a dictator. I was dictating what everybody did. I micromanaged everything that they did. And so at the end, we built this helicopter. And the person who's doing the event says, right, I'd like you just to let us know how good the person that was leading you was. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get some stick here. And my team put them, it was really good, he knew what he was doing, he took control. I thought, that's I have worked in a dictatorship which didn't go like that. But anyway, I obviously wasn't enough of a dictator, but I thought it was really, really funny. It is a mix. We can be a dictator to get things done. If nothing's moving, we make the choices, make the decisions, and we get things moving, and that's fine. But we also have to look within ourselves and hear the person that the group or the people that we're speaking to, let them have a voice, and we've got to take that on board also. So there's a mix, there's balance that we have to have. So throughout this course, I did 2 years of counselling. That's 2 years of counselling with my peers, with students, with tutors, group counselling. We did a lot of counselling. And the idea is we were to look within ourselves and see what might be hidden there. Now, it was a very interesting concept. A lot of things that we do in the past, we forget or we push down because we didn't like that period of our time back then, or we was a different person back then. But we had to do this because as a ministerial kind of course, we need to address these demons, if you like, or the way we are, so that when we're talking to somebody else, it doesn't make a trigger that then affects who we're talking to or the situation that we are in. So basically, we've got to make peace with ourselves. So this was a very interesting time, 2 years of analysing ourselves and giving that time for other people. And through that, we really did bring up old wounds. And it was good because, sometimes these come up unexpectedly. And if we're not prepared, then, it affects us. It brings us down emotionally. So I thought it was a good thing. So through counselling, we are able to find attributing factors that influence our current thinking, finding psychological trauma which could be hidden. So I use that now to change the way I am when I'm talking to somebody, just so that I'm aware of how I'm reacting, and if I'm getting a positive response from somebody. So of course the next thing that influences as people is the environment. A little bit like the cosmos. I'm talking now about close at home. We're influenced by our parents, our friends and mentors. We are influenced by the conditions we are living in, how poor or rich we are. Through no fault of our own, we take on certain habits which we may seem alien to others, especially if we come from a different area or a different country. Just like a lot of refugees who come over here, they have different habits, different ways of living. And just like when we go over on holiday or go over somewhere else, we have to learn sometimes other people's culture a little. I know on business trips, I had to be aware that certain cultures react differently. If you don't in China, for instance, if you don't hand over your business card with two hands, if you don't do that, that's disrespect. You have to do it with two hands. And when you take a business card, you have to take it with two hands. So that was just learning a little bit of culture. It's just the way we grew up and the way we are. The problem is that we get so used to this new version of ourselves, which changes over time, and we forget what we used to be like and why we used to be that way. If you were to look at a younger version of yourself, you could quite easily question, who was that person? I sometimes have memories and think, oh my goodness, did I really do that? Yeah. So, I was a different person when I was a kid, when I was growing up, and to who I am now. We are always changing and adapting to what we are exposed to. That sometimes we forget who we really are. So we're all a little insecure inside sometimes, which makes us no different to anyone else in the world, and in some ways can be our connection with each other, if we let it. Sometimes who we are on the outside is not who we really want to be on the inside. And we are often afraid of letting ourselves go for many different reasons. And because we don't let that side of ourselves come to the surface, we forget about it. And that's when the person who we really are wants to be and becomes a stranger. The one that nobody ever gets to meet or ever rarely sees. There are a few questions I ask myself which you might be able to relate to. Who do I really want to be as a person? How do my past events affect me today? How can I use this to better understand other people? And what is stopping me from being my true self? So these are the questions I ask myself as I come to the end of my training and my research. I've now managed to let go and evolve into being who I really want to be. After many, many years. So I'm really thankful of the course I did and the things I've done that's brought me here today. And if you are already being true to yourself, I wish you many blessings, and I hope that everyone can do the same. So we go into our next hymn. So, we come to the end of the service, so I'd just like to blow out the candle. Good. We give thanks for the opportunity of looking deeper within ourselves. Come to terms with our past. May this bring us an understanding which carries us to new awareness of ourselves, so that we can bring a mindset of peace within our hearts and within our outer community. We go now and recognize that we are whole just as we are, and what we carry from the past does not weigh us down, knowing that we always have the choice to be who we really want to be.
Thank you.